Okay. Welcome to a webinar with Simone, a UniWhales DAO member and the head of marketing at the Fantom Foundation. Simone, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and we were joking before about your rowing. You just got, I think Fantom just got listed on Gemini, run by the Winklevoss twins, who were champion rowers at Harvard, as most people know. How long have you been in New York?
In New York? Ooh, I moved here around 10 years ago.
Cool. And when did you get into crypto?
I got into crypto. Okay, this is a fun story, and I will keep it kind of short. But basically, in 2013, I think it's around October 2013, a coworker of mine. So I have a background in advertising. I used to work I worked in advertising for a very long time. And so back then I was working in this creative studio, and this guy, we were the only two more like sort of nerds and techie kind of things. And this guy comes and is like, "Hey, have you ever heard of Bitcoin?" I'm like, "No, what is it?" And he started describing it, but unfortunately he couldn't understand it very well himself. So the only thing that he was focusing in his explanation was the difficulty. And of course that's something that is not as relevant as everything else, right? So I got super confused, and eventually I saw the price after a couple of months, the price going up like, I don't know, 60%, 100%. I was like, oh, wow, that's definitely something that is going to go up forever. So let me buy some. And that was how I got into crypto initially. So we're end of 2013. Then I forgot about it, came back in 2017, again with a similar weird story. Another friend of mine mentioned something, and I thought that he was talking about crypto, but he actually was talking about, I don't even know what, something else, maybe some stock or something. But I started looking at it again, and I, fell into the rabbit hole this time, and I never left. So yeah, early 2017 came back, and started going down the funnel, so to speak. So Google, then Reddit, then Telegram, then private Telegram groups, and that's where it all started. And that's when I started making some connections, including Michael Chen, that is the CMO of Fantom, and and then I was initially a community member of Fantom because I saw it really since the beginning. So I saw the whole thing, the whole process since the private sale and after. And and then about a year and a half ago, I joined the team as head of marketing.
Amazing, yeah, and I'm very bullish. I think it's very organic. Just community members joining, becoming integral parts of the ecosystem. I mean, so Fantom launched less than 2 years ago, right?
Yes.
Like the blockchain went live, right? The mainnet went live, and so you launched during a bear market. Hopefully this is not the start of one, but you went through a bull market, and I mean, a lot of things happened. I think that even in the last couple of months, like in that amazing blog post I'll keep referring to, there's been just an acceleration of growth. I mean, I heard, so just to go back to the beginning, I heard an interview with Andre Cronje when he was at, I guess he's still let's clarify that. He still contributes to Fantom, but more on an unofficial basis, or is he still part of the core team? How does that work?
Nah, not really. I mean, so Andre is very much a free spirit, so he doesn't really like to be associated in like in an old-fashioned way to a specific team or project or something like that, just because he wants to be free to build wherever he wants. So that being said, he's still very much part of the core team at Fantom, and he's our DeFi architect, and he actually oversees any big protocol upgrades. He's the one that actually pushes the upgrade to the network.
For sure, so, and I know it's like the consensus mechanism is a bit different than Ethereum. We probably won't go into that. I will add some notes on like the asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, because I guess he's studied that for years. But one thing, I just want to go into this because we're definitely going to go into farming and all the projects and the onboarding. But maybe we could actually start with something that a lot of people don't know. And there's always this discussion around real world adoption. We've looked at, recently at Goldfinch Finance and doing kind of microloans in Mexico and India. So Fantom has done these deals with governments and with governments like in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Ukraine. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe give us some details? Like, how does the Fantom blockchain assist in these with these international government initiatives?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're right. I mean, I guess unlike most of other blockchains that are usually focused on like on-chain stuff, we have a strong focus on real-world problems. And the reason that there's a very simple explanation for that. Of course, whenever you start to you want to deal with governments or institutions, cold calling doesn't really work. You really have to have some network or some connection to the government itself. And the reason why we were able to start our work in Afghanistan, it's because one of our core team member, Barik, is from Afghanistan, and he has connections in the government and on the ground, and we were able to actually present our solutions to several ministries in the Afghan government and start a few pilot programs with them. So yeah, there are a few ones. Let me pull them up because of course I can't remember them all by heart. So one that actually was very successful because it's the first pilot program that actually concluded, and it is with the Ministry of Health with Afghanistan. What we did there, it was a sort of a supply chain tracking system because Afghanistan, like a lot of let's say non-first world countries, so the majority of the world basically, have big problems with counterfeit medicines, and Afghanistan is one of these countries. So what we did basically partnered up with pharmaceutical distributors and manufacturers. We were able to track the whole life of a pharmaceutical, so that when people would go to the pharmacy and buy a specific, certain medicine, they're able to scratch off a label, scan a QR code, or if they don't have a smartphone, call a number, use a PIN that comes off by scratching the label, and that way they're 100% sure that that product is authentic. And if it's not, then of course the system gets alerted, and stuff like that. So besides that, we also have other pilot programs in the work. One is with the main energy company, another one with National Standard Authority, another one with the Railway Authority, another one with the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. So yeah, it's super exciting. And as I said, we were able to do so because of the connections that we had within the government. Now, once we had that connection, or at least once the first ministry started exploring this new and innovative solution that brings transparency, brings trustlessness to a government that is well known to be corrupt, at least in the past. It's getting better now, but of course, in certain areas of the world, corruption is still, unfortunately, still a big thing. And I'm from Italy, and corruption is there as well. So it's not just Afghanistan, for example. But anyway, once the other ministries started seeing this new solution getting sort of at least taken into consideration, they became interested into it. They started being
the other ministries started aping in.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. And that's why, the first, so the pilot with the Ministry of Health was, it's from last year, I believe. It's around April, May, June last year, 2020. So, and then in the next few months, we had another 5 ministries joining the bandwagon. And on top of that, then we have Pakistan, because like, oh, okay, so Afghanistan is doing this thing. Great, we want to do it. We want to do it too. And same thing, Ukraine, and then it started sort of a snowball effect, because once you have a technology that is working, and a government is brave enough to start to use it, then it works as a good example for other governments and other entities. So that's how it started, and it's still going. Of course, we're still very, very early, still pilot projects, and we're talking to several different countries. We announced recently Tajikistan as well. They're considering using Fantom for their e-government solution. Kazakhstan as well. No, sorry, not Kazakhstan. Whoops, not yet. Uzbekistan. But we're really talking to several government entities in the Asian, actually Central Asia region, and somewhere else.
I mean, I love to see this. Yeah, Fantom is just dominating Eurasia, and so I have to laugh because we're going through a bear market, and I think humor is quite important. It's a pretty stressful working in this with industry, but like how Andre just has that one photo of him kind of like looking to the side because he's not like a selfie type guy. I just like look at these photos with like the Afghani ministry and just think of us like superimposing a photo of like Andre there. I don't know. I just find it humorous, but that's really cool. I mean, I think that he was maybe in an interview I listened to with Andre in like 2019. He was maybe not as sure about using a blockchain because there's other ways to have distributed consensus, but it seems like really on the transparency. I guess there's still a little bit of trust, right, with the pharmaceutical companies themselves. But assuming you can trust the pharmaceutical companies, right, then you can have full transparency there, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's always, so there are 2 components, what you're talking about. Of course, the only thing that we can sort of control the transparency and the trustlessness of is the technology part. So we're sure 100% that once that data enters the blockchain, then it's immutable. It's not a database, so you can't go there and change it. Of course, if there's a malicious actor in the manufacturer company or the distributor that actually goes and changes the labels and does stuff like that, of course that's out of the realm of the blockchain.
And Simone, I want to add something. And just so I think there's a lot of people like to criticize like whether it's Ethereum or Bitcoin or Fantom. They're like, oh, so it doesn't solve every problem on Earth. Just improving, right? It doesn't have to be black or white. Like just improving transparency and pretty much most, if not all, governance is a really positive thing, like voting and so forth. So that's really cool. I want to move in. So yeah, I want to jump right into it. I mean, there's like I guess curves on Fantom, sushis on Fantom. Tell me how these deals work out. Are you part of a lot of these calls? Like how long does it take to integrate these things? And is it more them reaching out to you, you reaching out to them? Can you take us behind the scenes in some of these deals that you've managed, many partnerships and deals you've managed to strike?
Yeah, so that's a good question. When it comes to Curve and Sushi, that's all through Andre. So of course, all these teams, first thing, they're very, very close to Andre, and they're sort of part of the Yearn ecosystem. And second thing, they're very excited about Fantom because it kind of represents something that they really believe into, which is permissionless network that is also inclusive, that is also accessible for again low costs and fast transactions, so all that kind of stuff. So those came very naturally, actually. So the integration of the deployment of Sushi and Cream and Curve was they were among the first actually to be deployed back in February, right after FTM Scan was released, because that was a big missing piece in the Fantom ecosystem. So we had before an Explorer, but it was missing. It was not Etherscan, right? So and developers, and now I understand much better right now that I'm not a developer, but I can see exactly why they prefer Etherscan, because Etherscan, it's not pretty to look at, but it works, and people have been using that for years. Developers know exactly what to do with it. And if you do something in Explorer that is different from that, you can see that actually with Avalanche, they have an Explorer that works, but it's not. Developers don't like it because it's a little bit clunky to work on. And same thing happened with Polygon. And Polygon recently, they actually had the Etherscan team.
Huge upgrade.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So until that moment, actually, we're struggling a little bit to get projects built on because of the Explorer, because also actually we didn't have the contract verification feature built in our Explorer. So once the Etherscan team built FTM Scan for us, then that sort of opened the doors to the first protocols that were actually Curve and Sushi and Cream. But again, that was very seamless. There was not even many talks, to be honest. It was all handled by Andre and the teams themselves. But again, they were very close to the projects anyway.
So that's really interesting. I think it's also quite indicative of the culture of Fantom. So this is my take on Fantom culture, and I think it's very okay. So Chainlink has a specific culture, like as you know, Shiba Inu, SafeMoon have their own style of culture. If you join their chats, Thorchain, right, which is a really interesting project, has a different style of culture. I noticed this piece, and I feel like this is very Fantom-esque. Like, so obviously, keeping funds into the Fantom ecosystem, I imagine Block Tower required some FTM OTC. I could be wrong. But, like Ari Paul and them are quite smart. And there was something that stood out here. It was, I think it said non-tribal. Let me see if I can find it here. But like a non-tribal. And so that was very interesting to me. So I think when we started out with Afghanistan, there's a lot of tribalism in crypto. Some of it's good. It's not good or bad. Some of it's really helpful. But I think that I think in the beginning, especially with Bitcoin, you needed that tribalism, right? And same with Ethereum. But I kind of feel like that's part of the values of Fantom. Doing this real world stuff as well as we're EVM compatible. We're very pragmatic. We want blockchain to work. Did I get that right? And how else would you speak about the culture of the Fantom community?
Yeah, I think that you nailed it. That's exactly what you described. And so the Fantom community, of course, like every other community, can be tribal at times. We had some issues a few months ago with Avalanche, and they targeted Avalanche as a sort of like the enemy, and then I had to go back to their CEO and say, don't worry too much about these guys, and it's fine. They're friendly.
These nut jobs on Twitter and Telegram.
Yeah. They started, they started jumping on every Twitter post of I'm missing his name. I think it's John Woo. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yes, John. But anyway, you're completely right. And myself, in the first place, I'm very open, right? I like Fantom, I like Avalanche, and I like pretty much everything that brings forward this idea that all of us have, right? This, let's build this new thing, which is this huge sort of blockchain and crypto ecosystem, and then within it, there's going to be different things, and it's not one chain, one network that wins all. It's going to be different chains that communicate to each other, and each one of them, some will have some overlap, of course, but maybe one chain will specialize most on certain things, another chain will specialize on other things. So I get the tribalistic mentality, because that's also part of human nature, right? We want to, we need to feel that we belong to a certain group, and that's why also actually DAOs, they really work, right? Because it's like, oh, okay, I'm part of this very exclusive group of people. But that being said, yes, I really, whenever I can, I invite people to think about the bigger picture. So what is it that we really want? Do we want chain X to win above, all the others, and everyone else, all the other chain dies, or actually, what do we want from it? Do we want mass adoption? Do we want people to actually use this technology in their everyday lives, and to an extent they don't even know that they're using blockchain and crypto, because that's the ultimate goal. That's where we should be heading, right? So in 10 years, 15 years, or whatever years from now, we're using, in the same way that we're using Instagram or Twitter right now, we're using the internet, but we're not even thinking about it, right? So we're using all these underlying protocols, but why are we using Twitter? Because we want to express our opinion. Why are we using Instagram? Because we want to show our friends and family or the world what we're doing in that exact moment. It's not so much about the tech anymore. It becomes more about how to improve people's lives. So
sure.
Yeah, a very long and philosophical speech, but I strongly believe in that.
No, I appreciate that. And Simone, so I mean, you mentioned listen, having Andre for BizDev, that is huge, right? It's incredible, right? And I also, Redphone came on for a written interview because he likes to stay private with his identity. Mm-hmm. And he just talked about Polygon and their onboarding, right? And so I guess one part is onboarding, another part is the usage. And I think maybe there's like 500 million TVL on Fantom. I could be wrong there, but I asked some DAO members about this, preparing for this. How's your experience been? And they're like, yeah, I found it, superior to Polygon. But maybe that's because Polygon has, I know some spam, but some like full blocks. But I'm sure, the growth of Polygon was insane over the last couple months, right? And Fantom's growing too, as you we saw in that blog post. But do you anticipate having I don't know if it's a Fantom summer or Fantom fall, but how do you not just get the projects on there, but get the volume that Polygon has?
Well, that's a good question. So let's split it into, let's talk about the onboarding. And I'm familiar with both Fantom, of course, and Polygon, because I wanted to test it out and see how it works, and right. Also Avalanche. So I can speak of these three. And for the records, I really like Avalanche. I'm close to the team. I know them. So, so whenever I speak about these protocols, Polygon included, BSC included, it's all done, again, in a non-tribalistic way. I'm trying to be...
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to add one thing.
Yes.
You could... Edmund Gunsyre of Avalanche, right, out of Cornell, he arguably invented proof of work, right? So, yeah. It's amazing. Anyway, but I'll let you continue.
No, and Gun is amazing. I had actually had a lunch with him last year, right before the pandemic, and it was really, really nice. He's super down to earth. He's a very smart guy. Anyway, and I'm still in touch with all of them. So anyway, regarding the onboarding, yes, Fantom. Again, I'm trying to speak as objectively as possible, as the easiest onboarding of all of them. Especially now that more exchanges are supporting mainnet FTM, such as Binance and now Bitfinex as well. So that means that people can just buy on the exchange and transfer, withdraw mainnet FTM directly on their wallet or on MetaMask, and it's ready to go. Matic, Polygon, there's still the bridge thing, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if they enabled the direct withdrawals from the exchanges, but I used it last week, and waiting that 45 minutes, an hour, then sometimes becomes 3 hours. It's not very great user experience. Avalanche as well it's not great. They have this feature that is amazing, because they have three chains, three internal chains: the X chain, C chain, and P chain. And so X chain is for exchange, C chain is the contract, which is basically the EVM compatible one, and the P chain is the one used for staking. But whenever you want to use stuff on Avalanche, you have to do an additional internal cross-chain swap, which is a huge friction for non-experienced users. Now, Fantom has none of that. So it's super easy to use, to actually start using Fantom right away. And we also have this amazing bridge that Andre built with ZJ from AnySwap, that is multichain.xyz, where you can bridge, all sorts of assets from Ethereum to Fantom and also through other chains. So I would say yes, that's right now Fantom offers the smoothest onboarding user experience across all the EVM compatible networks. And that's part one. Part two, how do we grow the TVL, and how do we sort of onboard new projects? That's hard to say. So all the projects that they launched so far, they're all independent. So they just, the most successful that come to my mind are Spooky Swap, Spirit Swap, Reaper Farms. Reaper Farms is amazing. It's an auto-compounding vault thing that auto-compounds every 15 minutes, which is amazing. It's only possible because it's on Fantom, and the fees are so cheap and the transactions are so fast. But it's really great. You park your LPs there, and it just auto-compounds every 15 minutes. And then what else? And then, of course, Sushi, Cream, and so on. So these are all organic. Developers, they were just intrigued by the sort of innovations and improvements that Fantom brought to the table, and they just started building. And then users came along with them because, of course, initially there's incentives, there's good yields to be made and so forth. Now, why did Polygon grew so fast? That's because of the massive incentives that they have, right? They're right. Basically doubling the incentives using their Matic token. So we discussed that internally, also with Andre, with Mike Kong, with Michael Chen, and we have mixed feelings about it. I'm pretty sure it's not something that we're gonna do with Fantom. So incentivizing with FTM on top of the protocol rewards, because that's a little bit of short-lived anyway, right? What happens when Matic incentives run off? And we can get a sense of it by looking at what happens to the protocols, to most of the protocols, once from 100% a year APY, you go to 10%. Most of the users just go somewhere else. And when you do that to a protocol level, to a DApp level, it's kind of okay. If you do that to a network level, that's a little bit dangerous, because you might see, in the same way that the TVL went so up, it can also go down in a very similar fashion. So we really want to minimize that effect as much as possible, and we're really here for the long term and the long run, right? We have a we have treasury for hundreds of years right now, so we really don't need to do any non-organic pump of the network, so to speak, without accusing anyone of pumps or anything like that, but
for sure. It's just different strategies, right? Like Polygon's trying a way different strategy, right? And you got to experiment. That's interesting. Yeah. So not even just with the 20 million from Block Tower, but so Fantom's here for the long term. Absolutely. You've got the funds to be here for the long term. Amazing. That's really interesting about the Matic incentives there. By the way, if anyone here has any questions for Simone, please type them here in the chat. Simone, you really answered this a lot. I think people got a view into it. One thing that I was also curious about, how do you, and it's not layer one, right? But the layer two, like the Arbitrum and Optimism, versions of Optimistic and ZK rollups. I guess Arbitrum's using ETH, but maybe Optimism will have a token. Do you think about these quote unquote alternative places for EVM scaling? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I haven't, to be honest, I haven't thought too much about those scaling solutions, but in general, so I think honestly, so we have an issue here, which is Ethereum scaling. So anything that solves that is good, in my opinion. And as I said before, that doesn't mean that Arbitrum comes out and every other scaling solution dies. It's not like that.
Right.
And especially because, so of course, then layer 2 solutions are different in such way that they are still dependent on Ethereum. That's also kind of the little bit of a friction that is happening with Matic and Polygon, right? Because they had issues as well. Their checkpoint couldn't be validated, like a couple of weeks ago, and things started piling up, and fees got super expensive for validators. So there's also so layer 2s also can potentially add some issues on top of on top of the regular blockchain and crypto related issues. With the layer 1, it's completely independent. So if Ethereum goes down for some reason, or it doesn't work or slows down or anything like that, Fantom keeps going, Avalanche keeps going, Solana keeps going. So different use cases, different things, and there's absolutely, I strongly believe that there is space for everyone. We're moving towards a future that is going to be multi-chain and cross-chain.
Gotcha. And two questions here from the DAO. So from Yura, is there a plan, from Andre or the Urine ecosystem to release new products directly on Fantom?
That is a really good question, and I don't know.
Yeah.
But gotcha. I can tell you the way that Andre thinks.
Sure.
So, of course, we go back to what I said before. Basically, what is the end goal of this thing? Is this, to release a cool product on Fantom because it's Fantom, or Solana or Avalanche or Polygon, whatever, or the goal is to make a product that improves people's lives? So if that's the goal, which is the goal, so how can I improve people's lives? The next question is, where is the best place for this to happen? And for now, it's probably Ethereum. And then, of course, once the TVL on Fantom grows, which it's already growing, then there's going to be space for that as well. And of course, keep in mind that there are things that cannot be done on Ethereum, right?
Yeah.
Or at least that can be done on Fantom, and that cannot be done on Ethereum, such as I mentioned before, something like Reaper farms wouldn't make sense on Ethereum because auto compounding every 15 minutes for every single vault, for every single person doesn't make sense. This doesn't make financial sense.
Right.
So this is actually a conversation that I had recently also with the 88 MPH guys on their podcast, on their community talk, is rather than thinking about, okay, let's do the same stuff on, let's do another DEX on Ethereum, let's do another DEX on Fantom, let's do another DEX on Avalanche. What is that we can do, or what is that developers can do right now on these high-performance blockchains that wasn't possible before? Because I think that's the real, the real innovation. That's where it comes from. And then if Andre is working on something that kind of needs those specific features, such as very fast transaction fees and low costs, then of course Ethereum wouldn't be his network of choice. That being said, I don't know what Andre is working on, so this is not a promise or anything. But
and I'm sure you get these questions all the time, like
exactly.
What does Andre think, right? He's a unwilling or maybe willing celebrity in the space for all he's contributed and everything. And so maybe I can answer Carl's question here based on your answer, which was very good. Carl's asking, what would the winning narrative be for Fantom, and what would be the unique differentiator? So I think just by the way it's set up, high throughput, low latency. So that's very interesting. So not just putting Aave on Fantom, but what type of money market can you have on Fantom that you couldn't have on Ethereum? So I think that's a really good answer. And so maybe that's it. Maybe and maybe that's right. It's being built right now. Maybe it's on Fantom and just hasn't gotten the traction yet, or has a couple tweaks or iterations away. And so maybe what could really cause an explosion of Fantom, which seems to have been really focused on building out the infrastructure for that killer DApp to really explode and drive growth in Fantom.
Absolutely. Yes, that's exactly it. I think we're still so early because, again, when I say I mean developers and users as well. We're so used to using Ethereum for so many years that we're okay with, paying, $10, $50 for a transaction and waiting, 15, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, an hour, whatever it takes on Ethereum. But, it's kind of okay. And because again, we've been doing for such a long time, but in the real world, this doesn't work. No. Think about, let's take a sort of a different example, which is Amazon, right? So before Amazon, we used to order stuff online maybe and get it, maybe after a week, or, after 3 to 5 days, something like that. Now, with Amazon, we get stuff the same day or the next day. So that's a huge shift, and we cannot go back to whenever, personally, when I order something and I have to wait like a week to get it, it's like, shit, Amazon gets it to me in a day usually. So my point is that in the real world is very different to what we're used to. And if we're building something, be inclusive for most people as possible, something like Ethereum doesn't really work. And Fantom does work, but also what is it possible to do on Fantom in the same way as nobody thought that, 15 years ago, that we could order something online and have it delivered the same day for free. That was not possible, right? Because we didn't even think in those terms. So what terms are we not thinking right now, that would allow us to do certain things that I don't know of now that we have the infrastructure that is able to support those? So this is the real question.
Gotcha. So to add a couple of things there. Carl has another question. He said, from explain it like on 5 perspective, this is a challenging one. How would it differ from the Solana ecosystem? And I just wanted to interject with a couple thoughts. So one is Kyle Simone, who's a DAO member. He's coming on. I haven't put this in the DAO yet, but he's going to come on not this Friday, but the following Friday. And I don't want to just talk about Solana because he talks about it quite a bit on other podcasts, but like his investments into Helium, right? I don't know if you're familiar with the Helium network, and it's it's a completely different thing. So that when they make a lot of very interesting investments. But he's obviously very big into Solana. Anyway, so that's a little plug for UniWhales DAO, Kyle Simone, 10 days from now. But Carl asked, what do you think about the Solana ecosystem? I'll just give my answer, Carl. I mean, I saw someone talk about it yesterday, just kind of like jump trading. I feel like that high like options trading, like the really fast financial products, it seems to be perhaps where Solana is going. But in my opinion, if you look at like Sino Capital did like a tweet thread of all the most exciting projects from the Solana ecosystem in their hackathon. In my humble opinion, and I'd be fair, this was just a tweet thread. I didn't like deep dive into these projects or watch their presentations. So a huge grain of salt there. They seem just basically like things that are happening on Ethereum that we could do on Solana. Anyway, so but yeah, Simone, I mean that I'll throw that question over to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And as I said before, I think they both have a space. And why one over the other? I would say in the immediate term, it's just the EVM compatibility, right? And so it's so much easier to find developers that code Solidity rather than developers that know Rust. Rust is much more complex from my understanding, and or at least not as diffused as Solidity, that's for sure. So I would say that that is the main difference. Of course, Solana also appears to be faster. As you were saying, it allows also for for faster,
like the high frequency trading stuff, right?
Exactly, but also for high frequency trading, maybe it's not fast enough. Because if you go in, in the real high frequency trading, they were talking 100 milliseconds, and Solana doesn't get there. So yes, I mean, for sure, it's better than Fantom, better than Matic for that specific use case. And that's absolutely fantastic. That's exactly what I was referring to earlier. I would love for example, Solana have its own place for high frequency trading. And then maybe, DEX, regular AMM DEX trading happening on Fantom, for example, and so on, so that we have this sort of specializations on different networks depending on their features. But again, to make it super simple, I would say the main point of advantage at this point right now, it's the EVM compatibility of Fantom, of Avalanche, of Polygon, of BSC over Solana.
Gotcha. Well, Simone, thank you so much. Well, first off, for being a member of the DAO long term. I think you've been in since close to the beginning. And for all your work at Fantom and just being so friendly and informative about everything going on at Fantom. I'll definitely be on the lookout for the next killer DApp and following the Fantom ecosystem. It's good to know that you have the you as in the Fantom team has that long-term mindset. And I'm also personally very interested in these government initiatives at least for me, on the other side of the world. So, Simone, where can we find you besides the DAO, of course, but like on Twitter? What's the best place to get a hold of you?
Yeah, on Twitter it's at the other pump, because there was a fun, which is actually the same username that I have on Telegram, the same handle. So yeah, Twitter / the other pump. Fantom is Fantom FTN, and Fantom Foundation, the website. And
the other pump, I love it. Not Anthony Pompliano. Who I have to admit, when I woke up this morning, it is scary when you see the prices drop. Not even so much financially for me, but it's like, the interest in the project. It would be nice if it stables out. And I was like, I actually checked Anthony Pompliano's Twitter. I was like, I hope he still has the laser eyes. Like, I hope he still thinks like Bitcoin's going to 100K. Because if he removes that, I'm like, oh man, you might be in for a long winter. But Simone, thank you so much. It was such a great conversation with you. And again, I'm very happy to have you in the DAO. UniWhales DAO members, keep checking our webinars as well as our non-recorded community calls. Kyle Simone will be up 10 days from now. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Matt. Thank you.